Hi there, it's Dr. Kre. Welcome to the Dr. Kre and Me show. I'm so happy to have you tonight as we talk about a very interesting topic. We're going to talk about 6 issues that out of proportionately or that's happening to African American women out of proportional to other races. Hey Pam, hey Tanya. So tonight, share the screen, share this video. We're going to talk about 6 signs or things that can happen to African American women during pregnancy and during the postpartum time that happens to this group of women more than a lot more, that is, than other races. And in light of Serena Williams and her coming forth and talking about all of her pregnancy complications, I thought that it would be great for us to talk about this issue as it greatly affects our African American women. And probably a lot of you as, hey Miss Coleman, as a lot of women have had kids and have had some issues out as a result of your being pregnant and all of that. So we're going to talk. We'll get started in about 2 minutes. When you get here, make sure to put in the comments where you're watching from. Tanya already said she's in Alabama. Miss Pam's in North Carolina. Miss Coleman's in Alabama. And Miss Lovelace is in Alabama. How y'all doing tonight? It's like 30 degrees colder, I think, today than it was yesterday. Maybe not 30. It's supposed to be in the 30s. But I think it still was in the lower 50s. Hey, Dave and Denise. We're going to talk about a very interesting topic that I have been sparked to discuss out of relation to the Serena Williams story. I'm not sure if you guys have heard it, but we'll get started in about 1 minute. We're back at 7, so hopefully that makes you guys happy. It didn't really matter to me one way or the other, but we were running into those football games and stuff. So I was trying to get it in early so that you guys could get all of the information and enjoy the game. So we'll start in 1 minute. I hope you all had a great day. The Serena Williams story has been really buzzing about her, what happened to her after she had her baby, which makes me want to talk about some things that can actually happen during delivery, during postpartum, that actually affect African American women more and actually kill African American women at an alarmingly higher rate than any other race. So a lot of times people say, oh, pregnancy, that's easy. You know, anybody can do it. When that lady is barefoot and pregnant. However, it's normal until, I'm just speaking, I don't need to hear this. You don't need, you're not getting pregnant again. But it gives you some history. I know you said a lot of women in your family had preeclampsia. So if someone else is getting pregnant in your family, you can help them. Hey, Marquita. Marquita is coming in from Illinois. So is it 7:03? Okay, you know who I am. I'm Dr. Kre. I am a board-certified family medicine physician, and I specialize in what's important to you through my awesome practice here in Birmingham, Alabama, Brownstone. I also do some telehealth visits, concierge medicine, and just educating. I help you, the patient, learn to live better, live well, live healthier, happier lives. And I feel like when you know better, you do better. So you can do better, you can help educate others, and you can help to steer your doctor if you're having some concerns. Now you know what questions to ask. So tonight, I won't hold you long. We're going to talk about 6 issues or illnesses that out of proportionally, just crazily, the numbers are how often African American women die from these issues compared to other races. And it's all sparked by the Serena Williams story. So in like September or October, Serena and her husband had their baby. She named the little girl after her husband. So she had her baby, ended up having to have a C-section, which is not that big of a deal. Women have C-sections all the time. I had a C-section with Zoe. So had a C-section, and she has a history of blood clots. Outside of being pregnant, she just had a history. So she had been on blood thinners for years. And after she had her C-section, she was required to come off of her blood thinners in order, because you have a lot of bleeding going on. You've had surgery. This is nothing that was not common practice. Stop the blood thinners after being off of the blood thinners about a day. She began to have some shortness of breath, where her mom was in the room with her. She didn't want to freak her mom out. So she kind of climbed out the bed and told the nurse or someone that, hey, I'm having some shortness of breath. I'm pretty sure that I need some heparin, so a CT scan on my chest, because this wasn't anything that was foreign to her. She's had multiple blood clots in the past. So she knew exactly what she needed. Well, they come back. They didn't really listen to her. They ordered an ultrasound of her chest and not a CT scan, and it did not show the blood clots. Well, after continuing to my heart gets sicker and sicker, more shortness of breath, more chest pain, they ended up doing a CT scan, found all these little small blood clots in her lungs. So it confirmed the diagnosis that she was so afraid of. So they ended up she coughed and coughed and coughed, and it reopened up her C-section wound. So she had to go back into surgery for that. She also had to have surgery to remove some of the blood clots, because she had what was called a pulmonary embolism. And she also had them to put what's called an IVC filter in her groin, where it keeps, if you get a blood clot in your leg, from going to your lung, to your heart. So everybody's like, oh, they didn't listen to her. They didn't listen to her. They didn't listen to her. Hey, Andrea, the key is they did whatever. I don't know what was going on in their minds. They may have been like, well, this is standard of care. We check this first, then we do the CT scan. But in those instances, you have to work fast, because a blood clot going to your lungs can kill you very, very, very fast. So a woman that is pregnant has thicker blood anyway. Pregnancy is a hypercoagulable state. So you're at risk for having blood clots just by being pregnant. And of course, she already was just had a baby, already at double the risk of having blood clots, because she's got a clotting disorder. And lo and behold, she has a clot. So she had a really rough time, because after that, she took a lot of time to try and recover. I'm not really even sure if she started to have some postpartum depression. That's a whole nother discussion. But just being mindful that, hey, it really took her a good while to get back on her feet, because she just was very, kind of depressed, that you really want to bond with your baby, but you had all that stuff going on. You could not recover like you wanted to. Now we're talking about Serena Williams. She is a tennis, she's won all these championships. She's in good health. She's, stellar health, in good shape. She's doing what she needs to do. And this happened to her. So if this could happen to Serena, it can happen to any of us. And I do have some, hey Carmela, I do have some stories of women that I know a lot of these things have happened to. So I'm going to share some of their stories as well. So number one of the biggest things that can happen to African American women that may not happen to other women at the same rate is what's called postpartum bleeding. So postpartum bleeding is you've had your baby, you're so excited, they're down there working. And if you can remember, if you all have had kids, they really get in there and massage your uterus, where they really feel like they're squeezing and they really working down or really, really hard. Well, that's because they're trying to make the uterus really firm. So if it's boggy and it's floppy and it's not as firm as it can be, then you're at risk for having postpartum bleeding. So the uterus is too floppy. It's not firm enough. So if it doesn't get firm enough and you don't take that time to get it firm, then the woman is at risk for having all of this bleeding. So in Africa and a lot of other countries, women actually die from this. They're not able to get the bleeding to stop fast enough, and they actually die for something that you don't have to die from. And in America, African American women are actually dying from this as well. The uterus doesn't get firm enough, and then you continue to lose blood and bleed. And if you have fibroids, you're at even higher chance of having this postpartum bleeding. So number one, somebody type there for me, postpartum bleeding. is a phenomenon that affects African American women at alarming and higher rates than other races. So you have to be mindful, making sure that that nurse is coming in there and she's massaging that stomach. And even days after you have the baby, they'll come in and do a uterine check. You like, do you have to dig in my stomach like that? Yes, she does. Because we need that uterus to be very, 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 very firm so that we are not having all of a sudden you stand up and you lose half the blood in your body and you faint. So you have to be mindful that postpartum bleeding is real. So number 2 is uterine fibroids. African American women have more fibroids than any other race. 9 times out of 10 in my family, on my grandmother's side, she had all these sisters. They all had hysterectomies because they all had fibroids. All of them. My grandmother included. My mom had a hysterectomy in her 30s because she had fibroids. When I had Zoe 4 years ago, I didn't have any fibroids. Thank the Lord. So fibroids are little benign tumors that sit on your uterus. And you would like to say, when you think of benign, you think they don't bother me, I won't bother them. Well, they bother you. So usually women with fibroids have really, 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 really heavy cycles. They are just really heavy cycles because you got your uterus and the uterus sits like this. And just imagine these are the knots that on my hand, how my knuckles are sitting, are the fibroids. Well, the fibroids collect blood as you're having your cycle. So they drip and bleed just as much as your uterus does. So you're sloughing the line of your uterus and the little pocket of blood that all those fibroids can have. Women can have fibroids the size of grapefruits, the size of oranges, the size of lemons. So all the time you got fibroids. So yes, so it is common. Probably about 1 in 4 or 5 African American women have uterine fibroids. So if you have fibroids, that makes it that much harder to get that uterus to firm up and for you to stop bleeding. So that puts you at risk for having a postpartum bleeding. So number 2, we said fibroids, they add to pelvic pain and bleeding. So we are just like at alarming rate. It's just so much rare for Hispanic women. I think they have it a little bit more common, but white women usually do not have fibroids at the alarming rate. So you have all of these African American black women or whatever that are out here getting hysterectomies at 35 years old because they feel like they have to. Well, because everybody in their family all the women have no body parts. They may have one ovary in there because they had such bad fibroids. The fibroids cause you to have heavy cycles, cause you to become anemic, cause you to just be blah and have less energy, and on and on and on. So it just affects your lifestyle as much. So somebody write that in. Number 2, fibroids. Number 3 is a big one, preeclampsia. So preeclampsia is when you go into your pregnancy, you just as healthy as can be. You have normal blood pressure. About midway your pregnancy, it starts to creep up. Your blood pressure starts to get a little bit higher. Start to get some swelling in your feet, swelling in your hands. Blood pressure is not terrible yet, but it's just inching on up there ever so slightly. Then one day you go to the doctor and your blood pressure is off the chain. Like, what is going on? Why is your blood pressure this high? So blood pressure is super high. And they check your urine. You know, every time you go to the doctor while you're pregnant, they're checking your urine. So they're checking for protein. Oh, man, Miss Johnson, now you got protein in your urine. So now you are what's called preeclamptic. Well, African American women are diagnosed with preeclampsia earlier on in their pregnancy than compared to Caucasian women. So that's not to say that Caucasian women don't get preeclampsia. They do get it, but we get it earlier. And if your doctor's got to be mindful of it and thinking of it. So my blood pressure was pretty good all through the pregnancy. The week I went in to have Zoe, my pressure was up. 140s over 80s. And I was swollen like a pig. And he was like, okay, we'll watch you come back in a couple of days. Well, I went back. I didn't get to go back because my water broke that night and went into labor. Well, after I had Zoe, I began to have all of these real really, really, really bad headaches. And I was like, something is wrong. Can y'all please take this baby? And don't judge me because I had my baby at my hospital. So I knew all nurses were like, are y'all going to judge me? Please don't judge me. Take this baby because I got this amazingly big headache. Well, lo and behold, my blood pressure was 170s, 180s, over 80s and 90s. And they were like, well, let's start making me pee and the thing all around the clock. But I didn't have any protein in my urine. So they were like, we're going to put you on this medicine to keep you from, because this can happen while you're pregnant, when you're having a baby, or afterwards. So I was at just as much risk. So I'm at risk for it. So I get in there and I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't want to be put on all these IV medicines, but I feel so bad. So I ended up didn't have a stitch of high blood pressure leading up to this. But I'm just as, if you're educated, you know what you're supposed to be doing. That does not single you out. Just like being a star tennis athlete didn't take Serena out of that equation. It's just something with our genetic makeup that puts us at more risk for these things. So I ended up having pregnancy-induced hypertension, not preeclampsia. So I went on medicines for about 6 weeks. And after the 6 weeks, I was able to come off. But now, just from having pregnancy-induced hypertension, I'm at risk for real life high blood pressure. So I have to check my blood pressure every year, whatever, and make sure it's fine. And I have to check my blood sugar because I had, in my 100 and whatever pound self, had gestational diabetes, no sign of diabetes before. All of this is predisposed in my genetics. Yes. So you have to be mindful that these things have nothing to do with you. So back to preeclampsia. So normal blood pressure, you end up getting high blood pressure, protein in your urine. If this does not get corrected, you can have liver failure and the woman begins to have seizures and the woman can die. As a girl, I had a really, really, really close friend of mine, mom, who was, we were little. The daughter's probably like 21 now, so 21, 22 years old. I remember being in middle school, and the mom went into labor. We all knew the labor. We were from a small town. She went into labor. She got preeclamptic. She had seizures, and she died. And she left a, X amount hours baby here. The baby did fine, but she died of preeclampsia. I remember the helicopter coming to our small town trying to take her and airlift her, but by the time she can get there, she didn't survive. These are things that you don't feel like, it doesn't seem like in this day and time that we should be dying from, but it's happening. It's happening. So number 1, postpartum bleeding, fibroids. Number 2, fibroids. Number 3, preeclampsia. Number 4, uterine rupture. So if you have a little scar on your uterus from another surgery or anything, hey there, hey Auntie Deborah. If you have a scar on your uterus from another procedure or from a C-section, you're at risk for having what's called uterine rupture. So your uterus just busts wide open. The baby's just out there in your abdomen, and the oxygen is not getting to the baby. So the baby ends up dying. You could end up dying because that can set up infection. So number 4 is uterine rupture. So tearing the wall, C-section, previous C-sections increases risk, and the wall of the uterus tears, and there goes the baby just there. So I was like, who is this happening to? What is happening? It's very, 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 very rare compared to the other things that I've listed so far. But uterine rupture is something by far that can happen. So postpartum bleeding, fibroids, preeclampsia, uterine rupture, and number 5 is spontaneous. These are some big words. So I'll type them in there later. Spontaneous coronary artery disease, where all of a sudden you're either pregnant, in labor, just had a baby, and you all of a sudden have a heart attack because there's blockage to some of the small vessels of your heart. Like, why? I just had so many questions like, why would this happen, other than your genetics, things that we just can't control. Amazingly, yes, pregnancy is easy and it's no big deal until it's your pregnancy and it's you. So be mindful. I know most of us are not having any more kids, me included, but you have to be mindful that these are things that's out there. If you do have daughters that are getting pregnant, granddaughters that are getting pregnant, friends that are getting pregnant. These are some symptoms that we need to be mindful of, because this kills. It's kill. I mean, if Serena can get sick after she has a baby, no one else is exempt, because she's the picture of health. You know, she's the picture of, you know, athletic build, healthy. She is playing in tournaments, you know, in her second month of pregnancy. So anyway, so it's a spontaneous coronary artery disease where you have a tear in the blood vessel near your heart, and cause a heart attack. So it's a tear in your vessel, not a blockage. So you have a tear ripping, knocks you out, acute coronary event. You have a heart attack, and there's nothing else in your record that says you should have had a heart attack other than you had a baby. So number 1, postpartum bleeding. Number 2, fibroids. Number 3, preeclampsia. Number 4, uterine rupture. Number 5, spontaneous coronary artery dissection. And number 6, which is a huge one, is postpartum cardiomyopathy, or is essentially heart failure. So postpartum cardiomyopathy, this one is the most freshest on my mind, because I had a girlfriend to have a baby in October. And she had a lot of swelling, you know, but everybody swells, you know, no big deal. And so she goes, has his baby. I go visit. She's still swollen. Okay. She was anemic, so she had to get a lot of blood. Okay, so maybe you got a lot of blood. That's a lot of fluid. Yada, yada, yada. She's 36. She's 37. Pretty healthy. Got one other kid. Not on any medicines other than iron. Leading into this, she goes into complete heart failure. Complete heart failure. You just had a baby. Why are you in heart failure? Goes into heart failure. And gets really, 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 really sick. A 2-day hospital visit turns into like a 8-day, 9 days. She was coughing, shortness of breath, getting, you know, echocardiograms, EKGs, trying to make sure she had a heart attack. This is so common. And luckily hers happened while she still was in the hospital, because I also had a patient. Hers happened a week after she had her baby. She was at home, and she actually, I'm sorry y'all, she actually coded. She coded during her, you know, while being at home. Luckily, she was in the paramedics when this happened, and she was able to be brought back, but had a lot of distress going on with it, you know, because her kids saw it, that kind of thing. She was a week or so out. Another friend of mine, she's a doctor. She's a family medicine doctor. And 6 months after having her baby, she had, you know, this postpartum cardiomyopathy. Her mom did have some heart disease. However, there was no risk. Everything before had been fine. Only risk they could come up with was she had a baby. So great news is the doctor friend that had it, she's doing great, and she's several years out. Her baby's probably 6 or 7, if they or older. My patient that my former patient, because she's not a patient of mine anymore, former patient, she's doing well. And then my friend, her baby is almost 3 months old now, and she's doing great. She's still tired a little bit, but they're watching her heart and monitoring her quite closely. So I know this wasn't like this amazingly exciting talk tonight, but I felt like it was really, really, really informative. Hey, Talisha, that we talked about this, because there's been a lot of slack about Serena not getting the help that she needs, but this is very common. This is very common. Women come in with a lot of complaints like, oh, that's just your legs swelling just because you're pregnant. Oh, your hands swollen just because you're pregnant. Oh, you're kind of out of breath because you gained 50 pounds with your pregnancy. So these are all things that you have to be mindful of. So the things that affect African American women out of proportional to other women during pregnancy and postpartum is postpartum bleeding, uterine fibroids, preeclampsia, uterine rupture, spontaneous coronary artery dissection, and the biggest one, postpartum cardiomyopathy. So Miss Pam knows my mother-in-law calling. So I'm about to call her back. I'm like, it's Monday at 7. I do my lives then. So I thank you guys for joining tonight. wasn't a big exciting one. We'll do something fun next week. But I wanted us to talk about this because I wanted you to know that this isn't a new thing. The whole Serena thing is something that's happening on a regular basis. It's killing women, killing educated women. No one's exempt. So, you know who I am. I'm Dr. Kre. I am a board certified family medicine physician, and I specialize in what's important to you. Through my amazing practice here in Birmingham, my concierge medicine, my telehealth, I help the patient learn to live healthier, happier, just well lives all the way around. So if you have not got my book, please get it. If you have not got my book, please get it. It is 10 Commandments of the Working Wife. You can get it at www.workingwifebook.com. That's www.workingwifebook.com. If you're not a wife, for someone that is, it's hard out here in these wife streets. I love you guys. I'll see you guys on next Monday. Thank you so much, Santressa. Share this because somebody needs to hear it. Talk to you later. Bye.